point, I investigated CA It's a non-profit organization based in Durban, and they're here to empower informal traders. And this image speaks to this home of the informal traders, and it's also home of the organization itself. So it really speaks to being in one space and sharing. But that's how you understand the dynamics when you're in this one space where you're involved with your people. And they played an influence in my position and place of influence, where they highlighted this growing gap between the rich and poor, and the poor people being neglected. So organizations such as CA have noted the need to help people that are poverty stricken, to help people who are trying to engage in survival skills by even doing informal trade activities on our urban spaces. So we need to help in there. And also influence in my positioning was also the brief, where we're dealing with Denver, and there's that whole thing of exploring participation, engagement, and collaboration with the residents of Denver, but also us working as a group as the students of UJ. Intended methodologies, they talk about inclusive design, urban intelligence, education, vocation, and this all speaks to these lessons that talk about this inclusive environment. They're really trying to encourage a city that caters to all users, and also lessons can be learned from guys from other practitioners that have been involved. In tailored methods is to advocate, to be that voice to people who are not able to speak for themselves, to empower people that are in need, and to influence laws that will support informal settlements, will support informal trade, because this is a means for people to live and survive, and it's important to support them. And through these methods it's also I feel that a method that's very important is to research, because through research it's the way where you'll be able to understand your context. You also be able to learn of precedents that are out there that have dealt with the context that we're looking at, and you'll also be able to generate ideas that will push through that will influence possible strategies and interventions. And a method / technique that I definitely would like to use, which was influenced from learning from Denver and also the workshops also, is to use graphics, to communicate with graphics. What's the quality of graphics? How do they speak to people? Maybe it's easier for people to understand certain things through graphics. And moving on from that method to techniques, also one of the techniques is that it's to engage, to physically go to the ground level, to go to the context and understand surroundings, be involved in communities, engage with people, get to learn who they are, get to learn how people are living, and also in this whole thing of coming up with strategize with the communities. And this whole thing of setting up this engagement and meeting up with community members, engaging with other parties, I think it's important to learn from this lesson of C.A. Dufflin, who talks about going to the table, bringing all these different people to the table to talk, to share, to negotiate, talk about ideas, spaces, and beliefs, so that we can have a common ground, and also to try and establish a way forward. The process that has influenced this whole thing of me thinking of a toolkit is noting the realities, the surroundings that we live in, that contradictions that you find within our cities in South Africa, like when you look at areas of Sandton versus Alex, also learning from Denver, and me also the influence of the research that I was doing about Dufflin, and the workshops, the other practitioners people were talking about in class. An intended tool that I would like to use is to use art for communication and engagement. I mean, what can be done through art? Research that I was reading on, there's a study that states that it's possible through art to help people to understand certain complicated subjects a bit easier. And one of the ideas is that this tool, how can it be taken further, that people can engage and start doing their own art forms, they can start doing their own expressions, communicating back to other people, especially to governments and so on. And these were precedent studies where it definitely was engaging with cardboard recycling ladies, and understanding them and how the realm is. And also they came with an intervention where they wanted to improve their trolleys. So the trolley on the corner edge, it shows it was a prototype that they're dealing with. And another also study that was interesting to me was Liz. One of the projects that she was dealing with, she was engaging with a community of Muslim girls in Nigeria, and since it was a culture and a context that was not really familiar with, engaging with these graphic cards really made interaction a bit easy for her, and the girls were able to relate to it because it was talking about a culture that they practice in this whole marriage thing. And also my experiences just learning from Denver is that when we had picked up some of the litter from Denver and we started experimenting with artworks, and when we were presenting our work, the community responded very well to the artworks compared to the architectural work that we had. So that was also the influence of this whole idea that I should use art as a toolkit. And then this whole thing of noticing a lot of litter that's around Denver and talking about art, which art talks about creating things, this was a thought of how can this litter be used? It could be used through art. I mean, this is also an example where waste materials, these water bottles, they were used as a building material for these other rural schools. It was an eco brick project. So president study learning from Nabil Hamid, and this was learning from the workshops that we're dealing with in class, where from him he was saying in establishing possible strategies, it's important to have community participation, and also those readings from his books where they're talking about looking, listening, and measuring, that you need to understand the people and the policies before you start anything. And this was a precedent study, a women empowerment project in Uganda. And the interesting thing was that the non-profit organization that was involved, they engaged to empower women, to teach them skills. But one of the things that they highlighted is that once they're done, they're just there for temporary help, and then once they disappear, they want the community to help themselves, so they leave no link where the community is still dependent on them. And just even my own experiences, me, in our Xhosa culture, there's a word called sibanye. So in this whole manhood thing, it talks about being one. So a lesson that you can learn here is that as a society, in order to move forward, we need to stand together, work together. We need to have a place of meeting and communicating. And this was also a precedent study of the Ubuntu Youth Center back at home in KwaZakele. KwaZakele is a township that's very province-stricken, and this building has invoked lots of positive and negative ideas about things in the community, where they say it's ISO, but it's powerful that it's ISO because it's really the strong structure that's talking about supporting the youth. And at the end of the day, in all that I've learned, is that the important thing is we need to come together, sit together, and engage, talk to each other, come up with strategies together as a unit, not as individuals. We cannot dictate solutions to people. We need to talk to each other. We can only fix things through engagement. Thank you.